Hey, welcome back to another coding tutorial. I'm Alan, and today we're going to be talking about React. I'm going to teach you how to use the React useState hook, what it is, how to use it, and how to manipulate your UI on the front end using the useState hook. So to get started here, I've created a really basic React project using the create React app from the command line. It's really easy to get started. All you need to do is type out one command and it basically sets up your React project for you. I've then went ahead and stripped out any code or functionality that we don't need for this particular project or tutorial. And I've set up a little title here and just got my environment set up the way I need it. So to get started, what is the useState hook? So basically, to understand how the useState hook works, you need to sort of understand what state is. And to put it simple, what state is it basically allows you to store information or data in a local variable, which is globally accessible throughout your project, whether that be passing it through props or using another plugin or package like Redux to access it anywhere throughout your project. But all you really need to know is it stores some information or data. So with that being said, we can go ahead and get stuck into this tutorial. So to get started, all you need to do is import the useState hook from React. So if you open up your curly braces and type useState in here, then come into your functional component. I'm using functional components here, as with hooks you need to use functional components. Going forward, functional components are really the future of React, and class-based components are really pretty much being deprecated at the minute. I think they'll still be supported throughout the future, but going forward you should always aim to use functional components. I will have a video coming up pretty soon comparing functional and class-based components, but for now let's assume that you know what a functional component is and we can continue. So to set up your first state variable, all we do is say const and open up this array, and whatever we need to name our variable is our first parameter in here. So I'm going to set up a useState variable here called activated, and I'm going to type set activated here, and I'll explain this in a second, and I'll also explain this now as well. So this array is basically destructing the return value from the useState hook. So this useState hook is basically calling a function which returns the whole set state part of React within a functional component. With any state variable that you set up using the hook, you always get a set method or function, and this set method or function will set the value of this state variable. The one and only argument that the useState method takes in is the initial value. This initial value could be a string, a boolean, an object, an array, a function. This initial value can be anything. For this example, I'm going to use a boolean. So I've initially set my boolean to false. If I wanted to set it to true, I would just change this to a true value, and that would initially set my value to true. But for this, I'm going to set it to false. Now, this is the basic setup of using the useState hook. We've literally set up our variable. We've got a set method for our variable using the useState hook. However, now what I want to show you is how to actually then use that in order to do something. So let's come into our return here, and I'm going to set up just a p tag here which says I am, and then based on the state variable, I'm going to say on or off. So what this line is saying is if this variable is true, then print out on, and if it is false or anything else other than true, then print out off. So at the minute you can see on the right hand side here in the output, it says off, and that is because the useState initial value is set to false. So let's create a button here which will let us change the value of the state variable, which in turn then will make our app render something else. In this case, it will be set to on because we're going to set our variable to true. So let's set up a button here. And I've got some styles set up already in my app.css file. So I've just got a class called main button. And in here, I'm just going to say press me. So I have a button here, and what I want this button to do is basically change the value of the state variable. How can I do that? Well, if we go back up to line 6 here, where we set up our state hook, you can see that by destructing the return value of the useState function or method, we get a set method. And this set method is directly related to the variable that we've set up. So each state variable gets its own set method. So we can just use this, and the value that you pass into this function will override the value that the state is holding. So let's create an onClick event. And in this onClick event, basically all we need to do is call the setActivated function and pass in a true value. So what this is saying is, once I click this button, call the function setActivated and pass in true. And what that is going to do is it's going to update the value of that state variable related to this set method and set it to true. So if we look at our p tag here, where we set up if the activated is true, then print out on, else print out off. So at the minute, if you look at the right hand side, again, it says off. However, if I press this button now, we have hooked this up to our state. So if I press this, you can see that the output changes to I am on. And if I press it again, you can see that it doesn't actually change. And that is because we're constantly passing in a true value. So to show you it working both ways, instead of setting it to true, we can just set it to if activated, then false, else true. So now if we press it, the initial value is false, so it is off. If we press it, it becomes on because it's true now. And if we press it again, it will go off again because we're saying if activated is already true, then pass false to set the state, else set it to true. So this will work off, on. Another thing we could do is we could change what the button actually says based on the value of the state as well. So let's say in here, if activated is true, then let's print out deactivate me. And if it's false, then let's just say activate me. So now you can see on the screen here on the right hand side, the button actually reads activate me. And if we press this, you can see the button changes to deactivate me because it's on. The value of the state currently is true. And when we press it, it changes to false, which in turn re-renders the UI and also the text that we've set up in the button and in the p tag. So this is a really simple way to understand the useState hook in React. It's really, really simple to get started with. All you need to do, just to go over it again, is import the useState from React, set it up inside your functional component. Just remember that each variable in state that you have comes default with its own set method, and that set method or function directly sets the value of that state variable, and the useState method or function takes in an initial value. So the initial value is basically like saying var activated equals false. So by reading line 8 here, you know that activated is equal to false because it has a default value. So this is basically what the initial value in a useState hook is. It's just what do you want to set the value to be at the start before it's actually changed. So that's it for the useState hook. It's really simple. It's really quick to get started with. There's so much more you can do with the useState hook. You can store any amount of data in it. You can store objects, you can store arrays, you can store arrays of objects, you can store booleans, you can store strings, you can store pretty much everything in the state. And once you start to combine different bits of functionality with the state in React, it really helps to make your app become quite complex and opens up a whole different opportunity of functionality for your project. But this was the basic and simple way to understand the useState hook. If it helped you, or if you enjoyed this video, please just leave a like on the video. And also, if you want to see more React videos in the near future, this is going to be the start of a little series. So please just subscribe to the channel, and hopefully then you will be reminded of any uploads that I put out. And yeah, hopefully this really helped you, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Cheers.